As I continue my evaluation of Pride Month, building my case against it on several different levels. By the way, if you have not watched my video against Pride Month, I encourage you to. It is a great video. I have to evaluate how Pride is impacting the social sphere, which brings me to the topic of Pride murals. Many of you, as you saw in the clips before my commentary, as you will see throughout this video, have probably gained attention to these various murals of the Pride flag popping up on city streets, whether it be streets in West Virginia or in Florida, and the response to them, the backlash being ferocious. For example, there was a 19-year-old man who was charged with a hate crime in Florida for running over a Pride mural which was on the street, doing donuts on it, I suppose. That apparently was a hate crime, and there have, of course, been similar responses to Pride murals across America. And many people are looking at this simply as another example of virtue signaling. But my friends, there is a deeper phenomenon going on with these Pride murals that go beyond your preconceptions that we will be exploring in this video today. Before we get to those, hello, everyone. My name is Christian Watson. I am your host. Today, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys listening to me. If you enjoy social and political commentary with a philosophical bent, then I encourage you to please subscribe. This is the channel to be. Like this video, comment on this video. Even if you disagree with me, part of refining the mind is testing your own conclusions against the conclusions in the arguments of someone else. That's how we get better, and that's how we, as Americans, or if you're outside of America, as denizens of the West, move our civilization forward against the wails and the activities of those who seek to regress us into their own version of society. Now, on to the video. So as I mentioned, the Pride murals have become a very hot topic of conversation. But I think the important thing about Pride murals and Pride flags going up on businesses and institutions, because by the way, there's very little difference between a Pride mural on the street and a Pride flag going up on a U.S. consulate, which, by the way, was banned recently. You can't do that anymore on those consulates, or a business. They're both trying to say the same thing. They both represent the same phenomenon, but they have a different location in the physical world. The true significance, my friends, is an attempt to revise American life and the proper relationship of American life in relation to government and power. Let me walk you through this. So you've had several cities, whether it be in Florida, whether it be Fredericton, West Virginia, regardless of where it is. You've had our Huntington, West Virginia, where they just put up a mural. I've had several cities use public funds to put up these murals on streets that all the taxpayers fund. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you have this kind of thing being done with public funds, and by the way, I use the term public in the loosest way possible, because anyone that has a good understanding of the American way of life and philosophy knows that public simply means government controlled, and government controlled is not truly public. It is held by those who are in power, because if things that were government controlled were truly public, then anyone and everyone would have a right to that thing, to use that thing, or to do whatever they want with that thing whenever they want to. But when you have a community of people that have the rights to the same thing, and they have unlimited rights to the same thing as would be properly conceptualized, you get a situation of chaos, which is why public is a misnomer. It's not public. It is private in the hands of power. When it comes to public funds being used to fund these things, you must understand, this is not simply a statement of a few individuals. At this point, it's a statement that reflects the community. See, here's the problem. The original American conception of government was that there were two spheres of life. This is what our founders understood, and this is what the classical liberal conception of Americanism was. There's two spheres of life. There's the public life, and there's the private life. The public life, or the public sphere rather, is the sphere of government and law. It is meant to address a few core things stipulated in the Constitution that adhere with the philosophy of the Bill of Rights. And there's the private sphere. This is the sphere of the family, of the church, of charity, of things that actually make society run and are custodians for a sound social order. But when you begin putting up political murals, or murals that make a social statement using public funds, you are essentially dissolving the relationship between the private and the public sphere, you're collapsing them into one. And you're telling everyone in the community, despite what you think, despite what you say, despite what your values are, I'm going to use your resources to say something that may be totally opposed to your values and that may not really reflect the goals of the community, but may instead reflect a very small few. Now, in the cases where it does reflect the goals of the majority, you still have a problem. The problem is the minority. This is going to be the central problem of any political activity that occurs within a sort of small r Republican government. And the problem is this: when the excesses of the majority infringe upon the desires of the minority, you have a tyrannical injustice. So no matter how you paint this, no matter which way you go with this, governments doing this in their city create some kind of moral harm because it undoubtedly does not reflect the values of everyone in the community or a minority in the community. And most importantly, it goes outside of the bounds of what city governments and city officials should be doing. City governments and city officials should not be making ideological statements. That's not why they are there. They are there to maintain the integrity of the city of government and to serve the people of that community. Very simple. But these pride murals, by collapsing the public-private distinction, make matters of social life instead matters of public life. It makes political activism in the social sphere a matter of policy. And by doing that, it enables a certain class of people, whoever it is, I don't care if it's the LGBTQ lobby, I don't care if it's a group over here or whatever, I don't care who they are, I don't care what their orientation is, it enables a class of people to rule over others with the force of law. And by enabling that, you've got a perversion of law. That's the deeper phenomenon here with these pride murals. It's not simply virtue signaling. It's not simply the left being emotional. This is an assault on the American conception of life, community, and society, which has distinguished us from the old world and has allowed us as a civilization to grow beyond the limitations of the old world and to keep tyranny in check. That is the insidiousness of this sort of identity-influenced leftism. Not that it's virtue signaling, not that it's reflective of unchecked ideas, but that it is instead an assault on everything we hold dear as an axiom as Americans, right? And then it feeds into this broader system of anti-American utopianism that continues this dissolution of American life. Because that young man who was charged with a hate crime, see, what happens is you have these categories introduced into American law, like the category of a hate crime, which, by the way, is a philosophically and logically untenable category because hate is a matter of emotion. Emotion is largely a matter of perception. So then when you make laws on the basis of perception and not on the basis of concise principles, the law can mean different things to different people because different things to different people or different things are hateful or non-hateful to different people. Now you have the law used as a tool, a weaponized tool in the hands of an ideologue as opposed to a tool that affixes itself to the principle of justice. Therefore, the law is no longer the law. The law is instead a weapon that can be used against some by others. That's what the idea of a hate crime does, and yet it's legitimized by this sort of emotional affectation, the sort of emotional closeness to identity, and then that is legitimized by certain actions that happen. Because there are certain people that would see these people who mark up these pride murals as being hateful, when in all reality, they're not being hateful. It's only something that may very well be, not all that well kept, but it's not hateful towards a person. It's a statement about the idea that is on the ground. By the way, just as flag burning is protected by the First Amendment, which, by the way, I hate flag burning. I'm a patriot through and through. I hate it. Just as flag burning is protected by the First Amendment, beating up pride murals is also protected by the First Amendment. It's protected by the American philosophy of expression, especially when those murals are on public property. As I close, let me say one thing. I mentioned this in the last video. When you displace the cultural symbols of a nation with the modern symbols of a political ideology, You will be able to make people forget or become distant from their history. And we can't just see these murals and all this kind of stuff happening in isolation. We must see it happening within the context of a highly systemic, a highly organized, and a highly refined operation to tear down American cultural symbols, whether it be General Rochambeau in Lafayette Park, whether it be Marquis de Lafayette in Lafayette Park, whether it be William Penn, whether it be Jefferson. We've all seen these people come under attack in the past few weeks or the past few years. There is a sophisticated operation to tear those things down and replace those things with symbols of this new ideology. And by doing that, transform America into the utopian vision of those ideologues. We must keep our cultural symbols, which are universal and politically neutral, affixed upon our grounds, and keep these New Age symbols away, because these New Age symbols have the ability to disturb our understanding of what it means to be an American. And if that happens, you no longer have a country of countrymen, you have a country of opponents, not unified, but divided. That is another effect of these so-called Pride murals. So in any case, I don't care what it is on any level, these Pride murals are unwise, they are unfounded, and they are another example of the ideological creep that is continuing to overtake American society. And those of us who understand what it takes to have a good society should be the ones to reject this nonsense, and we should be the ones to instead embrace the universality of our Americanism above all else. One last thing as well. The mission of those who accept the principle of revolutionary leftism is not to simply make people uncomfortable. It is to weaponize every single small thing and convert it into social currency for their agenda. Look at this happen in Los Angeles, where they literally said a U-turn was homophobic, and they therefore took the U-turn sign down. Go.
LA City Council members Hugo Soto Martinez and Nithya Raman were on hand today to help remove the signs. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
In this worldview, everything is assessed through a social lens. There is no truth outside of social institutions or social society or social instances. This is a worldview that is called social constructionism. And this worldview is insidious because it assumes that truth, knowledge, virtue, everything we hold dear as human beings, not only as Americans, but as human beings, was created for the purposes or by the purposes of some actor to do something, whether it be to oppress you, whether it be to inform you. But the implication is there is no actual truth or value outside of society. And that, my friends, is where the danger comes in. Because the American notion of society says, before we came into society, we had rights, we had internal values, we had internal processes that give us the ability to reason beyond the level of animals. And society simply allows us to exhibit those things in the best way possible, because man in isolation is not a man that can flourish, but man in the presence of people is a man who can flourish and flourish well. This is how fundamental and foundational this fight is. It's not about a pride mural. It's about what it means to live in a society, what it means to understand truth, and what it means to interact with morality. That is what we're up against. And for that reason, my friends, we ought to reject these New Age cultural symbols that the Pride movement is trying to push upon us. And we ought to embrace the good old individualism of America, no matter if you're gay, straight, or whatever. What matters about you is that you are a human being. And you have universal value in the eyes of nature or in the eyes of God, however you wish to put it. That is my message, my friends. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Do whatever you can to keep this message out there. Donate to me if you want to. It's all in the comment section down below. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please stay pensive.